Hi everybody. Let's talk about the High Priestess. So she is card number 2 in the Major Arcana of the Tarot deck. So let's get into this. Right, let's first look. The picture that I'm showing, that is from my personal tarot deck. It's going to be available in November. It is available for pre-order as well, so pop me a personal message if you would like one of these decks. All right, let's get to the Morgan Greer Tarot first. It's a very traditional image. We see the two pillars, black and white. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. The crescent moon. She's wearing blue. She's sitting with that scroll in her hands, and then the moon there at the top as well. Now we see very similar with here. If we look at the curtains, once again, the one is light, the one is dark. We've got the moon on her head. We've got the triple moon symbol. She's sitting with a book in her hand, all of the other divination tools. When we look at the druid craft, she's got her book of shadows there. We see the moon. We see the two pillars. One is lighter, one is darker. Then we've got this little one here, which is the Lightseer's Tarot. We've once again got two pillars. You can see light coming from the one, dark coming from the other one. We've got the moon, and then of course, yes, we've got all of the jewelry and such. She doesn't have a scroll, but her eyes are closed. There's a reason for that. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Here we're again seeing the two pillars, the moon, all of the moon symbology, the moon at her feet holding the scroll. She's also holding some lavender. Now, right, let's get straight into her with her keywords. Her keywords are intuition, inner wisdom, the unconscious, and the feminine divine. Now, when we start looking at the High Priestess, we are working with the subconscious mind. We are working with intuition, and we're working with that feminine side, that sixth sense. Now, I love to bring up the sixth sense when it comes to her. It's that thing of when a baby cries, a mom just instinctively knows whether it's hungry or sick or naughty or whatever it might be. She knows instinctively. It's intuition. It's that sixth sense that just says, that's what it is. And this is what this card is all about. Now, let's talk about the traditional imagery of the High Priestess. Now, it's good to note that there's here and there's a different deck that will give her another name. The traditional name for the High Priestess is the Popess, and we do see a resurgence in cards calling her the Popess. I've seen some that calls her the goddess, whereas the magician sometimes then becomes the god, or the hierophant becomes the god. But for the most, we are still with High Priestess, which is just a name that I love because of its meaning. So she's usually a woman. She's seated between two pillars, one being light, one being dark. It symbolizes the dual energies of nature. The two pillars do have names. The one is called severity, and the other one is called mercy, and we're going to get to that in a second as well. And then she wears fine robes. It's usually in purples or blues, both very intuitive colors. And she's got a crescent moon that rests at her feet, or it will appear on a coronet or both, or on a crown upon her head. And then she often wears some type of a veil or something that will, or there will be curtains, there will be something that's flowing somewhere in the picture, and we can see it on all of them. If we look at her, how that robes are flowing, and even these ones, it just kind of goes on forever. We don't know where they stop. Even here, the sheer material. So I've even seen decks where her entire robes or her dress is made just out of lace. It's usually very see-through. It's a veil appearance, and it just shows that she's completely removed from ordinary life. It's that veil between the here and the wherever she might be. Now, right, first of all, we need to remember that the high priestess is the embodiment of mystery. Like the ancient oracles and the sibyls, she has this gift of prophecy. She can see into the next world and kind of into the future as well. She makes an excellent teacher and a guide into the world of spiritual enlightenment. This is an exceptionally spiritual card. It's a card of belief, it's a card of faith, it's a card of trusting your intuition. And it's a reminder that every single answer that you're looking for, you will find within yourself. It's not out there somewhere. I know that in many decks she's looking at a book of shadows, or she's reading tarot cards herself, or crystal ball, or something like that, and she's looking for it externally. But the idea behind the divination aspect is that the answer is actually coming from within her, and that's something exceptionally important to remember when working with this card. It's that turn left instead of right here, but you know you need to go right to get to the destination in the fastest manner of time. But it's that little voice that says turn left, and then something really good happens, or you find out that something really bad happened on the path to the right hand side. So she does find it within. She might have the tools to find all of the answers outside of her. But once again, this is not a logical card. This is an intuitive card. It is a very spiritual card. So yes, so we need to look at it from that point of view. It's not a scientifically explained card. We can't explain intuition. We can't explain a sixth sense. We can't explain spirituality. We can call it spirit guides. We can call it the universe, the cosmos, but it doesn't make it scientific. It's a feeling. It and if you don't find that feeling inside yourself, you're not going to find it outside yourself either. It's that immediate aversion when you meet somebody and go like, this person needs to stay away from me. It's very much the same as that. So right, the high priestess is obviously very much associated with the moon. We see the moon in the card, we see it on her crown, sometimes underneath her feet as well. And that is the symbol of intuition, guidance, and also the nature of life, because the moon grows stronger, it grows full. So we've got waning, we've got waxing, all of the way to dark moon, new moon, and it's this 28-day cycle that cycles completely, showing birth, life, death, rebirth over and over and over again. And the moon, which reflects the light of the sun, symbolizes the reflection of spiritual and philosophical level as well. So it's good to remember that whatever comes from the moon needs to become philosophical as well, because then in time it will be proven. So the moon's influence is obviously everywhere in the image, and it starts with the dominant colors of the purples, the blues, the blacks, and then of course silver or white in certain decks. So that all has to do with the moon. It's all colors of intuition, it's colors of life, death, and rebirth. And that is something to always keep in mind with reading this card, is that constant cycle of life, that higher understanding, that feeling that, you know what, things need to change, answers will come as it comes. It's that thing of, you know what, tomorrow will look after tomorrow if I have faith and I believe and I follow my intuition and I listen to my inner voice. It will bring happiness into my life. So right, let's go on. Now, the veil of the priestess is the veil between this world and the next world. And when we're talking about the next world, we're not specifically talking about dimensions and planes and such. It's somebody that is very much aware that what we see isn't all that's there. I mean, we don't see atoms and electrons and molecules in the air, but we know that they're there. We know there's oxygen in the air. We don't need to see it to know that it's there. And what she's doing is actually not that intuitive at its very core. It's more of an understanding that not everything is always seen. And when we start looking at not everything being seen, but being aware of its presence still being there, it means that we make different type of decisions in life, and we start looking within ourselves because we know that the answer can't always be seen, so we need to trust ourselves to make the right decision. So just because you're seeing certain things, there's always something unseen, uh, another element that could influence the situation, as to speak, which we don't know of, or certain elements that's not visible for us to make the correct decisions, and that comes to the intuition. And when we start working with her, she looks at the past. That's why she's packing up the cards, or looking at the book of shadows. She's looking at the past, and she says, well, past behavior is going to predict future behavior, and I intuitively know that this person will probably, most possibly, react in this certain manner. Now, the two pillars behind her is the pillars of severity and the pillars of mercy. It's lightness and darkness, it's spirit and matter, it's destruction, and it is creation. They're two shades of light and dark, which also reinforces the theme of polarity and of duality. And when we start looking at the pillars, we always think that the black one will be the darkness and the severity, and the white one would be mercy and good. But she also reminds us that that is not necessarily true, because light doesn't always bring good, that just as darkness doesn't always represent evil. Sometimes it could be the other way around. When we walk outside during daylight, it's a chaos of colors, there's chaos everywhere. But if we walk out in the nighttime and it's very dark, it's actually quite peaceful. There's much less going on at that moment. So what she's actually telling you is to recognize things for what they are, to stand still, close your eyes, and actually listen to yourself, to which one is peaceful, which one is severe, which one is actually mercy, which one is good, which one is bad, because the two might look quite different from the outside looking in. But when you stand still and you truly listen to yourself, then you might have a complete different opinion of what is good and what is bad and what is right and wrong and light and dark. And it's all about that duality. It's about that thing when your mother used to call you into the room and went like, I know what you did. I've got eyes in the back of my head. And in actual fact, she didn't know at all. She just went on a hunch, and she was just right. She was following her intuition because she knows to look that little bit deeper within herself from her own experience, but also listen to that little voice inside that said, this was the one. This is what happened. And in most cases, a mom is usually right when she said all of that. I used to think my mom was a witch because I couldn't do anything. I'll be there in my room with the door closed doing something, and she'll go like, why are you doing that? And I'll go like, I didn't do that. And she's like, don't kid me, I've got eyes that can look through walls. And I'll go like, oh, gosh, this woman is a witch, give or take later, but she's a witch. But she knew because she looked inside herself. She didn't question herself, and she just knew. And that's the thing about intuition. It's about not questioning yourself. It's not about going to investigate. It's taking that hunch and running with it and seeing what actually happens. Because in more cases than not, drawing this card using your intuition, that is the right path to go. Not all cards are logical. Not all cards can have a certain direction and a certain way that you need to carry on. Sometimes you need to take the left road instead of the right to get to the right. Sometimes that's needed. Sometimes there's something you might need to pick up on the left road. And because there is collective consciousness in the world, and because we do connect with one another, and because all energy is one, we can tap into that energy. It's actually quite scientific when you think about it. It's tapping into collective consciousness and getting back to that animal instinct, so to speak, and just following that instinctive something inside yourself, leading you to a place that can be quite serendipitous. Right, so looking further at the card itself, we also need to look at the scroll that she has in her hands, or sometimes it's tarot cards or Book of Shadows. And going into that further, a Book of Shadows is actually writing down the experiences that you've had. When we start looking at the scroll, it would mean very much the same thing. It's handwritten, and then the cards symbolizing all of the aspects of life, where we're looking at the fact that she does have the answer. She's got the answer to so many questions already. But we also need to look at the wisdom that she has within herself, because she knows what she wrote down. She knows exactly what is already there. And that is why she's not always looking at them, because she already does know the answer to it. And the quote, "If you do not find it within, you will not find it on the outside," comes to mind here. Because she, even if it's on the outside, it does come from within very much. Now, on the crown on her head, or usually at her feet or such, we will see the triple moon symbol somewhere, or it'll have a crescent moon in a place with the full moon in another. And that is the ancient form of the pagan triple goddess, and it shows the maiden, the Buddha, and the crone. And once again, that just symbolizes that she can be all three of them. She might be in one phase of the three of them. She might be nurturing as a mother. She might be the crone giving advice, or she might still have the innocence and the purity of the maiden as well, or she could be all three of them all at once. And when looking at that, that also is life, death, and rebirth, and her understanding that phases, and understanding that everything eventually ends, everything dies, everything starts over again, that there's this huge cycle of life. So that's all things to keep into account when working with the High Priestess. So when we read her, it's all about using your intuition. It's all about looking at where you've been, looking at the wisdom, not specifically knowledge, but the wisdom that you have acquired, and listening to that inner voice as to how to apply the wisdom to the knowledge that you do have. So yes, so that is the High Priestess, and I'll be back in the next video, and we're going to then be talking about the next card, which is the Empress. See you guys again soon. Bye.